The comment. The study of this book is forbidden. Excuse me. It starts off by saying, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. The study of this book is forbidden. It is wise to destroy this copy after the first reading. Whosoever disregards this does so at his own risk and peril. These are most dire. Those who discuss the contents of this book should be shunned by all as centers of pestilence. All questions of the law are to be decided only by appeal to my writings, each for himself. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. Love is the law, love under will. The priest of the princes, Ankh often kansu. Now, when I posted this is what I'm going to talk about today. I've got a few comments back, including a rather lengthy essay on, the nature of why books are banned and why books are forbidden and things like that. And believe me, that's not the subject that I'm going to talk about when I bring up the Class A comment in the Book of the Law. I am militantly against book banning and book burning and manipulation of school curriculum to ignore history and facts in an attempt to perpetuate sort of a mythical history for a society or for a country or for a religion, for that matter. So as much as I appreciate the posting of that very scholarly essay on the evils or the apologetics of book banning, I'm afraid the individual has missed the point entirely. Anyway, that comment that I just read and I just showed you is the only comment that came from Crowley that is considered Class A. Now, there are 13 so-called holy books of Thelema that Crowley said were more or less not written by him, but written through him. And that he knew that early on that the Book of the Law, because he didn't understand it fully himself. Not only that, but what he thought he did understand changed. It was constantly changing. So, and he was very well aware of the evils that come from one individual attempting to interpret and create a dogma or a doctrine around a particular interpretation of a holy book, a book that was received under inspiration and the inspiration of one person, like a prophet. Like, in a sense, no one can properly interpret work like that for another person. In the same way as you'll read a beautiful poem by Shelley or something like that. And there's certain things that you can discuss about it, but to really say, this means that, okay. When Shakespeare said, oh, for a muse of fire, okay, put it in whatever context you want. You know, one person will say, he's invoking salamanders. And another person will say, he's just saying, hey, I'm kind of tongue-tied at the beginning of the... Okay. But don't screw with Shakespeare. Okay. And really don't screw with somebody's received document. And that's sort of the point. So Crowley knew, hey, the second I'm dead, there's going to be idiots, morons, and assholes that are going to try to interpret this book of the law. And on one side, they're going to create wild and crazy, violent anarchy, and on the other, this is going to be the foundational text for a fascist world dictatorship. And on the other side, this is the complete liberation of the individual soul. No. What it says here is, all questions of the law are to be decided only by appeal to my writings, each for himself. This comment, like the book of the law itself, like the other 12 holy books of Thelema, this comment is in Class A. You don't change this comment even in the style of a letter. This should guide you away from attempting to interpret the book of the law for another person. There may be things within it that you agree with, some things that you understand, some things that you don't. Fine. And you have every freedom to voice that. Also, you're warned that those who discuss the contents should be shunned by all as centers of pestilence. So in other words, people that understand the comment should politely say, stay away from the people that are attempting to interpret this for you. You know, don't have a Thelemic cult. And I know people say, well, you belong to the OTO and you belong to the AA. Those aren't cults, okay, in the classic sense of the term, okay? And any attempts to turn them into cults is discouraged. Okay. Anyway, I posted a little film. It's part of a documentary by the good folks at Real Time, a Canadian production company, on Aleister Crowley, the Beast 666, and my good friend Richard Kaczynski and myself have been interviewed for the thing. And I tell the story about how I attempted to follow these instructions. And I told it in the video, and they dramatized me burning the book of the law and things like that. It's very cute. I posted it this morning. But I also ran across an early essay, speaking of essays, that I wrote concerning it. And the essay is simply called The Book of the Law, the study of this book is forbidden. And because I haven't even seen this in so many years, I thought I'd share it with you today. It's very short. It changed my life. Those words that drop so easily in conversation are perhaps the greatest recommendation a person can make about a book. Yet how many times is that statement really true? How many times has a single book really changed your life, altered your character and behavior, rewritten your destiny? For me, the answer is once. The day I first read the Book of the Law, Liber Al Vel Legis. Late in 1972, As a result of my studies in Kabbalah, I came upon an extraordinary deck of tarot cards, the Thoth Tarot. I'd never seen anything so magnificent in my life. The cards were so strange and hauntingly beautiful that they actually disturbed me. They triggered feelings and emotions within me that I didn't understand. My uneasiness turned to downright panic when I looked up the name of the deck's creator in a cheap little occult dictionary. I bought it at a supermarket. That's how cheap it was. Aleister Crowley, famous Scottish Satanist and black magician. I knew it. Those cards were so frighteningly beautiful because the devil had something to do with it. I may have been a wild and crazy heretic, but I certainly didn't want anything to do with black magic. Most of all because I thought it was superstitious bullshit. Okay, I was a real kind of radical guy. That's bullshit. And black magic bullshit is creepy bullshit, okay? That's what I was thinking in my youth, okay? I mentioned the name Aleister Crowley to several of my Rosicrucian Order Amorc Lodge brothers and sisters who literally freaked out. He was the devil himself. Those are their words, okay? He was the devil himself, the Antichrist. He sacrificed humans. He ate babies. None of them, I would discover, had actually read anything by Aleister Crowley. I calmed down soon after that when a dear friend and a saintly friend of the family, that's Bob Patton, Robert Patton. Are you watching this morning, Robert? I hope so. Assured me that Crowley was a fascinating and brilliant character, and if I was truly interested in the Western mystical and magical traditions, I was going to have to become familiar with his work. He'd read the, I'm digressing, he'd read the Confessions. I think he was in Central America doing some gardening, and he read the Confessions, as I recall. I reluctantly took his advice and read the Book of Thoth, the deck's companion text. My brother had it. They weren't everywhere. Okay, it was a little paperback of it. Excuse me. I didn't understand most of it, but I came to the tentative conclusion that my friend was correct, and that I should read more things by and about this man Crowley. Now, in the 70s, Crowley books were few and far between. So it was probably around early 1974, because I'd been reading what I could. But early in 1974, a friend, a guitar student, was traveling to England. So I asked him to bring me back anything he found there. When he returned, he presented me with Crowley's novel, Moonchild, a book called Liber Aleph. Talk about a book going over my head in those days. And a small, almost pamphlet-sized book called The Book of the Law. And I'm going to show you exactly what it looked like. It looked like this. Okay, now this isn't the book, but this was the book and the edition. And somehow it got from its privately printed by the OTO P.O. Box 2043, Dublin, California, in April of 1974. How it got to England, I don't know, but my friend, where he bought the other two books, found that in the bookstore too. I suspect it was at the Atlantis Bookshop on Museum Street in London. Okay. Pamphlet-sized book called the Book of the Law, because the Book of Thoth made so many references to the Book of the Law as the central holy book of Crowley's teachings. I decided I would read it first. As I thumbed through it, I came upon a very strange comment written on one of the back pages, and I showed it to you right from this book. I'll explain why this isn't the original then. Okay. The comment read, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. The study of this book is forbidden. It is wise to destroy this copy after first reading. Whosoever disregards this does so at his own risk and peril. They are most dire. Those who discuss the contents of the book are to be shunned by all as centers of pestilence. All questions of the law are to be decided only by appeal to my writings." And remember, this is signed the priest of the princes, Ankh Afnan Kansu. It's not signed to Megatherion. It's not signed Frater Perdurabo. It's not signed Aleister Crowley. It's signed priest of the princes, Ankh Afnan Kansu. So, keeping that in mind, all questions of the law are to be decided only by appeal to my writings, each for himself. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. Love is the law, love under will, the priest of the princes, Ankh Afnan Kansu. Wow, I thought. This was a serious magic book. A book no one can interpret for anybody else. A book you have to destroy after first reading. I was impressed. I decided that if I was going to read this thing only once, then destroy it, I'd better set aside a few hours and read it very carefully. A day or so later, that's just what I did. I had a little meditation altar, the Rosicrucians do when you read your monographs. You do it sort of ritualistically. I had a little meditation altar, a mirror and a couple of candles set up in our bedroom. After ceremonially bathing and dressing in a clean robe, I locked myself in the bedroom, lit the candles, sat down before the altar, and reverently opened the Book of the Law. The introductory pages, and those aren't in Class A, okay? The introductory pages told me it wasn't written by Crowley, but that it was received, dictated to him in Cairo over a 3-day period, in 1904, by a, quote, praeter-human intelligence calling itself Iwas, unquote, and that each of the 3 short chapters gave voice to a goddess or a god of ancient Egypt. Things are getting stranger and stranger. The first chapter was that of Nuit, the goddess of the night sky. It's a combination of poetry and prose that's indescribably beautiful, almost erotic. I was literally enchanted. I almost wept at the thought of having to destroy the book. The second chapter was that of Hadit, the lover and counterpart of Nuit. It was also a combination of poetry and prose, but its words were more practical and classically religious in tone. After finishing this chapter, I concluded that this book needed to be preserved and reread. Still, I was resolute in my intentions to obey the instructions at the end of the book. The third chapter is that of Rahur Kuit, a form of the Egyptian god Horus, god of war and vengeance. It was nothing like the first 2 chapters. It was the most terrifying, bloodthirsty, and violent thing I had ever read. Quote, "Choose ye an island, fortify it, dung it about with enginery of war. I will give you a war engine. With it ye shall smite the peoples, and none shall stand before you." Now you got to remember where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the 60s. I'm coming from the anti-war movement. I'm coming from the students of democratic society. I'm coming from the League of Industrial. I'm coming from the Wobblies here, okay? Book burning is for me the hugest, most no taboo thing. I would think nothing of burning a Bible, burning something else, but I would never, ever dream of burning a book. Any book was sacred. Any book was a thought. I wouldn't dream of burning Mein Kampf. I really wouldn't dream of. If it's a book, it's there, okay? That was my big taboo. That was my religion. Don't burn books. But all the old fears about Crowley return to me. Them that seek to entrap thee, to overthrow thee, them attack without pity or quarter, and destroy them utterly. Swift as a trodden serpent, turn and strike. Be thou yet deadlier than he. Drag down their souls to awful torment. Laugh at their fear. Spit upon them. My God, everyone was right. Crowley is the devil. My heart started to race. My face turned red. My ears felt like they were on fire. It's funny what you remember. I remember my ears just burning. Back to the chapter. Curse them, curse them, curse them. With my hawk's head I peck at the eyes of Jesus as he hangs upon the cross. I flap my wings in the face of Mohammed and blind him. Balasti, Umpeda, I spit upon your crapulous creeds. Now I knew that the book must be destroyed. It even gave instructions how. Paste the sheets from right to left and from top to bottom, and behold. When I was through with the book, I was in a state of complete spiritual hysteria. I felt bamboozled, lured into thinking Crowley wasn't the evil Satanist he was reputed to be. I went into the kitchen and found a bottle of Elmer's glue, and I did just what the third chapter said, or I thought. I pasted every sheet from right to left and from top to bottom. You know, in the back of my mind, the admonition in the book of Revelation, it's a seal up the book and eat it, you know. I went into the kitchen, okay. I pasted every sheet from right to left and top to bottom. It was so soggy by the end of it because there was a border of just soggy, wet Elmer's glue. And it weighed about a pound more than it did when it was dry. It took me the better part of a half hour to do it, and when I was finished, the edges were a wet, soggy mess. But the tiny book was completely sealed shut. I thought of the sealed book of John that John talked about in Revelation. Okay. I grabbed our brass incense pot and a bottle of rubbing alcohol and took everything outside to our driveway. I put the book in the pot and poured the alcohol all over it, then filled the pot to the rim. I was so nervous that I could hardly strike the match. When it was finally lit, I took a deep breath and started the fire. The book was so wet with glue at the edges that it didn't burn well at all. Only the center, which was dry, the center of each page burned, one at a time, very slowly. I had plenty of time to think about what I was doing. I didn't like it. My entire adult life up to that point was guided by a very liberal, actually radical, philosophy. A philosophy that held that one of the worst things a person can do is destroy a book. Book burning was one of the greatest evils in the world and the biggest taboo in my life. Nobody should burn a book, not even a bad book, not even an evil book. And look what I was doing. The cover had started to burn, and I saw the Book of the Law and the lovely lamen of the OTO. Now, this is burning away like that opening scene of Bonanza, you know. Let's see. And lovely lamen with the dove descending upon the Holy Grail curl away in flame, just like the opening sequence of the old television show Bonanza. Only instead of Hoss and Little Joe riding out of the flames, it was the words, the Book of the Law. Words that I was now reading a second time as each page from front to back slowly caught fire and burned away. You might say I had a little nervous breakdown. I probably am still suffering that nervous breakdown. You might say I had a little nervous breakdown as I stood there and stared at the unholy fire. If not a nervous breakdown, it was nearly a near-fatal crisis of conscience. Just what was it that I was afraid of? Just what was the problem? It became the clearest of all personal truths. The problem was not in that little book. The problem was with me. And I had a big problem. I had a big problem if I could so easily let anything evoke such blind fear and ignorant behavior. What in the book could possibly be as evil as my own fear and ignorance? I sat down next to the glow of the fire and realized that if I couldn't find the light of spiritual wisdom even in the so-called darkness, I'd never be able to find it anywhere. I vowed not to rest until I got another copy of the Book of the Law and plumb its mysteries. The sun had gone down and the driveway was dark by the time the last page I could read caught fire and curled away. And that last page said, "The study of this book is forbidden. It's wise to destroy this copy after first reading." So that's my little essay on that. I'd like to point out that about a year later, about a year later, I traveled to Dublin, California, and met Phyllis Seckler and Grady McMurtry, who, in the privacy of an artfully decorated garage initiated me into the OTO. And on that occasion, Phyllis presented me with the exact duplicate of the book that I burned in the driveway. And the cover, I'm going to have to get it restored. And I don't know if you can see that, but I signed it November 15th, 1975. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.